Greetings all, this is Hairy Nick. It's a new year and it's once again time to talk about the X-Wing meta. We have started regional tournaments here in Australia and around the world as well. Last weekend we had our first regional tournament here in the state of Queensland. Now it's worth noting before we dive into this, yes, this is just a top 8. It's a smaller tournament. We only have top 8s in smaller tournaments. It has to get to a certain size before we have top 16s. So in terms of the meta at a whole, it is worth noting that yes, even within the context of Australia, Queensland does not draw the biggest crowd. It doesn't really give us a great indication of what's happening on the meta at whole. But it's worth having a look at this simply because of the lists that were taken. There's a lot of really cool stuff going on with these lists. There's a lot of really cool things that people are doing with the new options we have available. Since the last time I did one of these videos, we've had Guns for Hire release, we've had the new FAQ come into effect, and we've had Wave 1213 release, and all of these things have massively affected what people are using in competitive X-Wing tournaments. So without further ado, let's move on to the stats from the top 8 breakdown of 2018 Queensland Nationals. The faction breakdown went Scum had 4 lists, Rebel had 2, Imperials had 2. There was a total of 21 ships overall, 8 of them being big, 13 being small. We had 3 lists of 2 ships and 5 lists of 3. Now, as I said, this isn't a very big tournament, so those stats alone don't really give us a lot of information, as this is only a small handful of the most competitive players in Australia. However, this breakdown of the ships being used does give us a bit more information. The ship that was used the most was the Alpha Class Starwing, a newcomer and something that's been really big on the scene. We have the Lancer Pursuit Craft in second place with a 3 of, Jump Masters, Tire Silencers, and YV666s of all things in third at 2 of each. Pretty much everything we see here is as expected. We saw a Kimagilla, which is good. Didn't think this would be making too many places in major tournaments, so hopefully this was a trend that will continue. Wasn't so big on the Kimagilla when it was revealed, but it looks like it's doing all right, at least from what we can see here. We have one of the new Phantoms in play, and we have a T65 X-Wing as well with Wes Jensen, which is arguably the most playable T65 X-Wing pilot now that Biggs has been nerfed. And this is all well and good, but probably the most significant thing out of all these lists is the prominence of this card here, the Harpoon Missile. This has been making such a massive splash in the meta. It's very, very efficient. It does a lot of damage. It does splash damage. It's a card that actively wants your list to be getting critical damage. And look, honestly, if you're getting critical damage, you're still going a long way to beat your opponent, even if this secondary effect of having the splash damage didn't exist. And it goes on a lot of ships. It went on one of those 2 YV666s we were talking about. It went on all the Alpha Class Starwings. It went on that Kimagilla, and even on the one Skirg Bomber with Captain Nim of all things. This card is absolutely nuts, and it will be interesting to see how long it's dominant in the meta. Indeed, it'll be interesting to see whether it's deemed too powerful and it needs a nerf at some stage. I don't think that's going to be the case. I just think it's a really good, well-costed missile at 4 that is just nice and efficient. It's not too powerful in my mind, but we'll see how it goes nonetheless. Now let's move on from the stats, because I actually really wanted to talk about the lists that were being used here. We had a few lists here that have been jumping around the meta pretty commonly. We had a few 2 of Bounty Hunters. We had a Kanan and Lowrick. This is all pretty stock standard. But what's interesting here is some of the new lists we're seeing cropping up. And there's just a few here I want to have a quick chat about. This one is by Crisp Hobman. We have the Rebel Fen Rail with Adaptability, M9G8 and Weapons Engineer on the Phantom 2, PS8 Poe Dameron with Veteran Instincts, Black 1, Advanced Optics R2 and Auto Thrusters, and Wes Jensen with VI, Flight Assist Astromech and Integrated Astromech. This list looks like a whole heap of fun. It has PS10 across the board. This Fen Rao in particular is a lot of fun. Between M9G8 and Weapons Engineer and his ability, he's doing so much to affect the board state. He's boosting up your own attacks, he's locking down your opponent's attack very efficiently. He has 2 different ways of locking down your opponent's attack by either making them re-roll their red dice or even limiting the amount of red dice they roll in the first place. And Poe Dameron and Wes Jansen just seem like really awesome options. With Flight Assist Astromech, Wes Jansen is able to do boost and barrel roll. Poe Dameron can already boost. He's got Auto Thrusters, R2 for the regen, and Advanced Optics, this really, really awesome card, which of course just basically lives on Poe Dameron now. Flight Assist Astromech, as I said, my favourite card from Wave 12-13. I'm not surprised to see it in the first big tournament breakdown I do. It's absolutely nuts, does so much work here. Integrated Astromech, you have access to that card for just one single point. And it's just good basic raw stats. There's not a whole heap of synergy in this list, but you have a great support ship and 2 great aces. That's pretty much all you need, and they all seem to be doing their job really nicely. We also have this list from Mr. Julian Hood. Now, I just want to point out before I go on here, I've actually played Julian. He came down to Melbourne last year for PAX, and I played him at what was kind of a mock-up Systems Open tournament General Games put on, and that was really cool. He played a list very similar to this against my 4 Kirax fighters, and it was really, really close. He just managed to beat me, but it's one of the best games of X-Wing I've played in a very long time. Here he has Captain Nim with Autoblast turrets, Veteran Instincts, Boba Fett, extra munitions, harpoon missiles and guidance chips, Tarani Calder in the Kimagila fighter with Veteran Instincts, guidance chips and harpoon missiles, and a contracted scout with rig cargo chute adaptability, ion projector and a courier droid. This is awesome. Now, the first thing I think when I look at this is, hey, the contracted scout has an ion projector, not an anti-pursuit laser. Now, why exactly is that? Basically, these 2 different upgrades do the same kind of thing. If your opponent bumps into you, they roll a dice. On a hit, they get a damage or an ion. In the case of ion projector, you get an ion token. And generally, I would recommend taking anti-pursuit lasers over the ion projector. Direct damage advances your game plan. It moves the game forward and puts you closer to winning the game. Whereas the ion projector only sets you up to do more damage the next turn, which is not always fantastic. However, what you've got to appreciate here is we have Captain Nim with Autoblast turret. Autoblast turret only works at range 1, so being able to set up that shot's very important. Tarani Calder has a bullseye firing arc, so getting ships inside that firing arc isn't so easy. Being able to ionize a ship and perfectly set up for the next turn a bullseye shot is powerful, and both of those aforementioned ships have harpoon missiles. And if you can use ion projector to set up harpoon missiles, then you can do splash damage, extra damage, get those crits through with guidance chips, and just have a really good time. So ion projector is a card I wouldn't usually recommend. However, in this list, it's doing so much work. The other interesting thing about Julian's list here is he's used Captain Nim without bombs, which is a bit bonkers if you think about it, meaning he's not making any use out of his pilot ability. He's taking Captain Nim purely because he's PS8 and has an EPT slot, so he can take Veteran Instincts and make him PS10, which is a big point investment for not capitalizing on that pilot ability. Basically, you're going from the Lock Revenant at 26 points up to Captain Nim at 30 points. It's a 4-point investment just to get that pilot skill all the way up there. I can kind of see what he's doing though. He's pilot skill matching with Tarani Calder. The contracted scout's using a courier droid to make sure he gets up to pilot skill 8, which means he's not deploying at the start of the game and signposting where you're going to deploy Tarani and Captain Nim. So it makes a lot of sense that you would go for the high pilot skill. I just think that's really curious that you've invested these points in the higher pilot skill but not capitalized on it fully. I guess the logic here, it's worth it. You just badly want pilot skill 10 in this list. You want both of these sort of quote-unquote aces to work together, to punch through as much damage and to both function at pilot skill 10 to make them super efficient. So yeah, Julian, if you're watching, this list looks awesome and I hope I get to play against it one day. But anyway, without further ado, let's look at the winning list. Indeed, this list was used by 2 different players, in Morgan Reed and Ben Doyle. This is 2 Rogue Squadron veterans and Kylo Ren. The Rogue Squadron veterans use the same build in Deadeye, guidance chips and harpoon missiles. Awesome, simple, effective, I love it. Kylo Ren uses Push the Limits, First Order Vanguard, Advanced Optics, Advanced Sensors, and Auto Thrusters. Now, I've spoken about the Kylo builds before. My thinking on this is you should either go for Push the Limits and Advanced Sensors, or you go for Veteran Instincts and the Threat Tracker. So these guys have gone for Push the Limits and Advanced Sensors, and that's just a lot of fun. Interestingly enough, they've gone for Advanced Optics, and my thinking was always around Prime Thrusters. And I guess the thinking here, Advanced Optics, is just a really good value card, which means you can take a focus token early and just hoard it until you need it. Where Prime Thrusters will give you a bit more flexibility out of Push Limits and Advanced Sensors, but it's going for a more of a hard synergy or a hard combo. And I can see the argument for either. I think Advanced Optics is still always an awesome card. As I said before, it's great when it combos with Poe Dameron, but it's always great full stop anyway. First Order Vanguard and Auto Thrusters, yep, of course, these are things that you will take when you can, and indeed you can in this list. Topping out at 99 points, you could make the argument that you can drop First Order Vanguard and go down to 97. But I think First Order Vanguard is just a great panic button to have on Kylo just in case he gets shot and just in case he blanks out on his green dice. There's not much to say about this list. Kylo Ren is super efficient, super scary, and the Rogue Squadron veterans, Jedi guidance ships, harpoon missiles. It's simple, it's effective, and it is disgusting. Interestingly enough, it doesn't use any of the titles. It can't afford any of the titles on this list, otherwise you wouldn't have an initiative bid, and you want an initiative bid with Kylo. But having said that, that's fine. I don't think it's absolutely required in this list. These guys can still reload to get more harpoon missiles. These guys can slam to get out of dodge. These guys can do so much work, and harpoon missiles are just always solid. You're pretty much relying on Kylo to get those crits. The guidance chips on the Rogue Squadron veterans can't give you crits because they only have a primary of 2 red dice. But look, that's okay. Kylo Ren can either get those crits through or he can kill the ships, which also triggers the splash damage. Either way, they're doing a lot of work. It's simple, it's effective. You have 3 really powerful, hard-hitting ships. These are the new ships from Wave 12-13. This is the nuts for Imperials in terms of ships that have been released recently. And I'm not surprised that they've won a regional tournament. I would not be surprised if this took more Australian regionals tournament. And I will be keeping an eye on this because I'm really excited to see how this goes. Anyway, guys, that was the 2018 X-Wing regionals for Queensland, Australia. I'm liking a lot of what we're seeing here. It looks like the meta is shifting away from some of the stuff that we sort of considered a negative play experience. We had basically no bombing lists in this. We didn't have any jump master spams. Yeah, we had a couple of jump masters, but they weren't the typical kind of triple mind link scouts or that kind of nonsense that we just grew to not enjoy playing against. One thing I can glean from this is I look at all these lists and I think, I really want to play against all these lists. I don't mind losing to these lists because they look like a lot of fun. They look like at the very core, these are jousty, shooty lists. It's basically what X-Wing is all about, and I'm liking the way the meta is shifting. Anyway, guys, I've rambled on long enough. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, like our Facebook page, and I will catch you later.